Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for coming to this session on how smaller publishers maximize their niche. I'm Heather Lance, and I'm really excited to moderate this session today, as I've been in the academic library market for 15 years, and I've been a part of the PCG family for 3 years at that time. And as my time working with small publishers, I've been supporting their initiatives through sales strategies and marketing feedback. And so I've been able to help with their strengths with market feedback and reporting and case studies. And we'll get into that a little bit more in the presentation. But as we go through this, I want to introduce our panelists today. Our first panelist is Lauren Kane from Bio1. And our second panelist is Sophie Moen. And our third is Rachel Zillig from ICE. Lauren is the Chief Strategy and Operating Officer of the nonprofit scientific publisher Bio1. She oversees sales and content development of the full text aggregation of Bio1 Complete and executes new services, products, and partnerships that further Bio1's mission. An active community participant in SSP's board of directors, and she's also the ALPS Professional Development Committee. She holds a BA from Georgetown University and an MBA from the University of New Hampshire. Welcome, Lauren. Our second panelist is the editorial director at Marian Liepert. She brings over 15 years of STEM publishing experience, from launching new publications to growing top-performing journals. Within a portfolio, she oversees it all. Prior to joining Marian Liepert, she worked at the Proceedings of the Academy of Sciences and Politico, and she holds a BS from the College of St. Benedict. And our third panelist is Rachel Zillig. She's a sales manager of the nonprofit civil engineering publisher ICE. She brings over 15 years of experience working in global publishing with direct market responsibility for North and South America, East Asia, and Oceania. Prior to joining ICE, Rachel worked at Taylor and Francis, Wolters Kluwer, and Alexander Street Press. Thanks. So in our conversation today, we're going to have 3 topics to discuss: how to build your brand, how to identify your purpose, and how to play with your strengths. Before we get started, I want to kind of set the stage. If you read any news wires, it's all over about how these large deals in the library market are suffering and being scrutinized because library budgets are decreasing. And as a small publisher, it's hard to be visible in such a market where everyone is vying for these dollars. At PCG, it wasn't really new information to us, as we are surveying our clients and prospects on a monthly, yearly basis. And based on a survey that we did, it's a library budget survey, we see that it's increasingly obvious that budgets are tighter and tighter year over year. The survey that I mentioned, there was about 665 institutions globally, senior level positions, and we looked at the different levels. And so this information that we're providing our publishers helps them identify their brand, where their market segment should go, and what is important to them. So I provided some quotes that I won't read, but basically it's really important to be visible. It's really important to connect with your audience. Who is using your product? And as our market research shows, our audience is not necessarily just the librarians, it's also the faculty. So taking this information in is how we help our publishers be successful in the market. Lauren Kane is going to speak about Bio1 and the brand and how to build your brand.
Good afternoon. Thanks so much to Heather and to my fellow panelists. I'm delighted to be here today, especially to talk about such an interesting topic and one that I think often gets the short shrift in some of these presentations. And that's the needs really of societies, and especially of smaller, more niche subject area societies. So I think it's a great topic, and hopefully we'll leave you with some practical strategies that you can apply to your own programs. So as Heather mentioned, Bio1 is a nonprofit publisher that aims to make scientific research more accessible through a growing portfolio of products and services. Bio1 Complete is the full text aggregation of 209 titles from 155 different societies around the globe. in the biological, ecological, and environmental sciences. Now, some of these are larger societies that would be on multiple platforms because we are a secondary aggregation, but some of the smaller titles are exclusive to Bio1 Complete. So the strength of Bio1 Complete is that it is a collaboration, that we are stronger together. It is global, it's interdisciplinary, and it offers more value to subscribers and users as a collection than as individual silos. But it's also important to the model that we reflect the individual qualities of the individual societies and titles that we have, from the American Fern Society to the Zoological Society of Southern Africa. So this truly is a balancing act. And what we have to keep in mind when we talk about mission, when we talk about value proposition, when we talk about brand, is the interdisciplinary and interdependent role that these things have on each other. The nice thing about nonprofit organizations and societies and associations in particular is that they have a built-in reason for existence that isn't just money or shareholder value. There's nothing wrong with that, but it is something special that adds to your brand. And for Bio1, this reason for existence is to maximize the dissemination of content published by smaller global societies at a cost-effective rate for subscribing libraries, balancing the needs of both groups and not one at the expense of the other. So this mission can also be your value proposition. It's what you bring to the marketplace that makes you different and unique. And this in turn becomes a key part of your brand. So how do we actually achieve this? How do we build the Bio1 brand? Well, first off, we leverage our subject areas and we try to understand the needs and research interests of these individual communities that we serve. So just as a brief example, we have one title that is directly applicable to zoos. It's called the Journal of Zoo and Wildlife Medicine. But we have, say, 30 titles that are broadly applicable in zoological sciences. And probably at least half of our titles have some content, some articles that would be applicable to zoological science. And so with the help of PCG, we identified last year, well, how do we get into the zoo and aquarium market? As we all know, the academic market is shrinking and is constrained. And so how do we go to these new audiences, to these new market segments? And for us, as funny as it seems, it's zoos and aquariums. And that actually is a very lucrative market. It's one that we identified the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. This is me at this conference last year. And you'll see to the side, I wish I had it in the picture, next to me, instead of it being an XML conversion vendor, it was large animal caging. So a little different from the communities we typically serve. But the point is, by identifying this prospect, by going to this community, we ultimately were able to reach out to a consortium of 200 zoos and aquariums around the world and offer them preferred pricing. And so this is an entirely new audience for us and something that could be, very lucrative over time. But we did it from understanding that even though on face value we had only one title that had zoo in the title that was directly for that audience, that we understood the interdisciplinary nature of the content that we published and the value of that niche. So the next thing I think we do fairly effectively is that we promote our business model. And this is something, again, that I think societies in general are often scared to do. We are transparent about and we promote our business model as part of our brand because business models should support missions and not the other way around. For nonprofits, business models are a distinct sales opportunity for differentiation from our commercial counterparts because, again, commercials' value proposition is they are trying to get as much value as they can for their shareholders, and fair enough. But what is the value as nonprofit societies that we are seeking? And so for Bio1, we operate on a cost recovery plus business model, and we return all revenue following operational costs and reserve needs back to our participating publishers. This is 68% of gross revenue and nearly $50 million since 2001. And we do this while keeping collection costs for subscribing libraries at 94% less than the commercial average in biology. So as you can see, this is our business model, but it's also a story. It's a reason to purchase and a reason to support. And most not-for-profit societies have something similar. that is not just a talking point in passing, but a key part of your potential brand. We also truly care about the company we keep. And this is something in supply chain management you see QI/QO, quality in, quality out. But I like to think of that also in terms of service provision. And what this means to me in kind of our context is this idea that the BioOne brand isn't just about staff or product, it extends to our full community. It's the partners that we work with, it's the vendors that we get services from, it's our publishing community, it's even the subscribers that we are transparent about whether our products make sense for them. When we take great care about who we work with, it's reflected in everything we do. And so BioOne's reputation for quality of product and service is certainly a key part of our brand and a way that we can meaningfully differentiate ourselves from competitors. And it's also a place, again, that I think more generally, we all as smaller organizations can do very effectively because we are able to make sure that our service is exceptional and often better times than our larger counterparts. And the other big thing we do, or the big advantage that we have, is agility. So we often think about changes in services, changes in access protocols, in strategic partnerships, in platform transitions. These are all big needs. These are challenging things, but they're also opportunities for growth. They're things to talk about. They're things to be transparent about. All organizations say they listen to their respective communities, and most have formal vehicles to do so. We have library advisory boards, we have publisher boards, we have user forums. But how many organizations actually use this feedback in meaningful ways to grow and develop? Some can't do so easily. But if you're a smaller organization, if you are truly a community-based organization, then again, this is something that you can both do effectively and talk about effectively and make part of your brand. So just in closing, some questions to consider for your programs. So first, what is your unique value proposition? Are you leveraging your mission to brand your program? When you're thinking about brand, you need to make sure to remember you are not just selling a product or a group of products. You are selling your organization and everything that makes that organization special. What adjacent audiences can you serve? What is the interdisciplinary value of your content? So the example I gave with the zoos, it truly depends on your organization, but whether you're doing it the old-fashioned way or you're using a lot of the data analytics that are now available through things like Dimensions, through things like there's so many tools out there to get a more in-depth understanding of what your content has to bear. And once you know that, thinking about what new market segments and what new audiences you can serve can be really effective. What other aspects of your organization can you brand? Your business model, your partnerships, your service, staff, anything again that makes you unique, that is your reason for being, can be extremely effective in reaching your audiences and making you stand out in the crowd from your competitors. And lastly, how can you use community feedback to drive your strategic roadmap? And I think the most important thing here, too, is who is your community? It is not a straightforward question. It is something that I think some people are too limited about. You need to be inclusive of how you think about your society community. It's not just your subscribers. It's not just your authors or members or users. It's everyone. It's all of the above. And so how are you servicing them and how are you communicating your brand and your value proposition to those audiences? Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. Next, we're going to have Sophie come up, and she's going to talk about publishing with passion and purpose. Sophie.
Thank you all very much. My name is Sophie Moen. I'm the editorial director at Marianne Lieberding Publishers. It is my pleasure to present to you today what our company stands for and how a small to medium-sized publisher has been able to make some really big strides, not only in the academic community and contributing to the academic record, but also make a name for ourselves through the niche publications that we do publish. Here's our motto: publishing with passion and purpose. And when I'm on the road, a lot of the times people ask me, is there really a Marianne Liebert at Marianne Liebert Inc. Publishers? And I'm so glad they asked, because there is. There is a wonderful woman that we all get to work with. She is our CEO. She is the leader of our team, and she is constantly engaged with our team, and we absolutely adore her. And she's our secret sauce, I have to say. She is really the reason why a lot of our launch publications are as successful as they are. So in 1980, the company was launched in a tiny apartment in Manhattan. Marianne Liebert was there, and she had an idea for a new publication. And ever since then, we now have grown to about 90 journals in the field, which is pretty significant for a medium publisher with only a staff of 100 people in New Rochelle, New York. So it's pretty significant how much our team has been able to accomplish over these past 3 decades. And full disclosure, I was not born when the company was launched, but I'm very pleased to be able to represent all of the journals that we so proudly. I will give you some examples of the ones that I launched and I'm so proud about. So this is on our website. You can go there. I will not read it in full, but at the core, we publish 90 peer-reviewed journals, leading trade magazines and publications, specialized newsletters, and also engage in society memberships, management, and conferences. And so some examples of our excellence over the past 3 decades include our trade publication, GEN, Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology News. It's Marianne's baby. It was the first publication she launched. It is still growing and growing in a very robust way. This is our latest cover. We completely redesigned the publication, so we hope you have a chance to visit the website. But this is one arm of our publishing company, and you can see this is on the microbiome, but it's our flagship publication. It launched in 1980, and it's the first publication of its kind in biotechnology. One of our other main successes is that we do our very best to publish journals first in their field. And once Marianne Liebert published GEN and got that off the ground, her very first journal, one of the very first journals actually, I should say, was AIDS Research and Human Retroviruses. And this was in 1983 when she wanted to launch this title, and against the advice of her closest family members and colleagues, she launched this publication because she felt that there was an absolute need during the AIDS crisis to launch a publication that would mean something to the community. She was approached by a lot of doctors and said, well, AIDS is really more like a Legionnaire's disease, and you shouldn't really pay much attention to it. She did not listen to them. She launched the publication, and it's still in existence, and it's one of the journals that we are most proud of today. Another example of a first in the field, human gene therapy. Of course, we just launched the CRISPR journal last year. Bioelectricity is a new launch journal this year, and phage therapy applications and research. We like to be first in the field and really galvanize all of those opportunities, no matter how niche the topic is. We also have a few powerhouse publications: Tissue Engineering, Human Gene Therapy, our thyroid journals. Tissue Engineering just turned 25 years old this year. Human Gene Therapy is celebrating its 30th year anniversary, and thyroid will be turning 30 next year. And these are our flagship, really a huge flagship journals that we celebrate. They each have 3 parts, and so they're really our versions of a mega journals, and we are incredibly proud of them. Some of the leaders in the field, so these are the examples of a medium or smaller publisher that is able to leverage very meaningful opportunities in the marketplace and in academic research. Soft Robotics we launched in 2013, and the first impact factor that was released on this journal was 6.4, which was pretty significant. The second year, 8.6. So within a matter of years, this journal became the leading robotics journal in the world. And it was a testament of how much effort and time we put into the journal. And really the first publication in soft robotics. Robotics, as we all know, is very popular, but soft robotics was really the opportunity for us there. And this is our journal editor, Barry Trimmer at Tufts University, and he's holding one of his own soft robots, a squishy, crawly, caterpillar-like robot. And it's really just our pleasure to work very closely with our editors. We do our very best to establish as close a connection with them because launching a publication is very difficult, and we need their full support and build that strong relationship with them as we launch our publications. Another example is 3D printing and additive manufacturing. This publication, it's the only publication that focuses on both 3D and 4D printing technologies and engineering. 4D printing technologies are when you print something using a 3D printing mechanism and different materials, and then you put that 3D printed object into a different environment, and that object morphs itself, it self-assembles into a 4D object. It's very cool. And our editor-in-chief, Skylar Tibbetts, who should be on this slide, he's at MIT, and he works very closely with a lot of these. I'm really sorry that this picture didn't come up, but Skylar is at MIT, and he works very, very carefully to maintain his position as the leading researcher in 4D printing technologies. And then another example is the CRISPR Journal, which we launched in 2018. I hope you all have heard about the CRISPR Journal. If you haven't, please check it out online. We are so proud of this journal. It has been the most successful launch we have ever in the history of the company been able to leverage, and that is because everyone in the company put forth their time, effort, and passion to make sure that this journal was the leading publication in its field. And I'm very pleased to say that within the first year of publication, we're already accepted into Medline, and we are just more than thrilled. It's very difficult to get into Medline, as I'm sure you all know, but we were indexed within the first year of publication, and that is a testament to the amount of effort and dedication we put towards our journals. These are a couple of, this is a display of the covers. We also like to be creative. We like to think outside of the box, hire artists that are able to create these beautiful covers and illustrations. And if you need any illustrators, we are very happy to provide who we use for our covers. But each cover is dedicated to one of the articles that was published in the journal. And my favorite one is the one with the corn. The maize is a very cool article there. And then, of course, this is a picture of our editor and editorial board members. Rodolphe Barangu is in the center. He's our editor-in-chief. Of course, Emmanuelle Charpentier and Jennifer Doudna. You've probably heard those names in the news. Feng Zhang and one of our other editorial board members. His name escapes me at this moment. But this is an example of our editorial team for that journal, and you see that we really dedicate a lot of our efforts towards excellence, quality of publication, quality of manuscripts, and want to make sure that our editor and editorial board members are also proud of the products that we publish. And in closing, our formula for success, we want to be fast. An example that I like to give is that Marianne, she will come into my office and she'll say, Sophie, I want to launch a journal on big data. And I say, okay. And she says, by the end of the week. And it's true, I think my colleagues would be able to confirm that Marianne likes to move fast. We are able to move fast because we are independently owned. We do not have to answer to stakeholders. We do not have to answer to board members. We are able to act quickly and launch journals within months. And that's really what we do. We like to be first. Our team is also passionate about everything that we put forth and put our energy towards. We like to be creative. We think of different strategies for marketing, for special sales, for advertising. We have the flexibility to do that. As I mentioned before, we are independent, we are determined, we are persistent. We have established a habit of excellence, and everything would not happen unless we really focus on our relationships. It is so important that every single journal editor that we work with feels like they have a direct connection not only to the editorial staff and the editorial team, but especially to Marianne Liebert. And every editor that comes and visits us has a chance to sit down and meet Marianne. She brings in her husband. We all sit together, and it's really this family environment. And I think the relationships that we build are really at the core of our success. So thank you very much. I'll turn things over to the next speaker.
Thanks, Sophie. And our next presenter is Rachel from ICE. She's going to talk about how to play to our strengths.
Okay, I hope you can hear me okay. Yeah, this is my first SSP, so I'm really pleased to be here. So thank you so much, particularly to Heather, for coordinating all of this. She's had to deal with time zones and all sorts, particularly for me. So I'm really delighted to be here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Institution of Civil Engineers. We're fairly small in terms of our publishing output, but we can still play to our strengths for sure. Okay, so I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail about our company, but we have quite a long history. So we've over 200 years of since the institution was founded. And yeah, we've grown a lot over those last sort of 2 centuries. So we now serve quite a number of different roles. So that includes professional training, accreditation, and publishing. So I'm responsible for the actual sales of our publishing output. So that includes ebooks and journals and archives, which have been going since 1836. Okay. So some of what I'm going to talk about now has some synergies actually with what Lauren was saying actually. It's all about really trying to link the ICE publishing brand back to the society values of the Institution of Civil Engineers, which I'm going to for short say ICE throughout this presentation. So the ICE has a charitable mission to benefit society and advance the field of civil engineering. So it's intrinsically linked really with the positive impact we're having on society, both in terms of our output and our academic and practitioner engagement. So the commercial activities that we do are really supporting that charitable mission in terms of output and dissemination. And so we kind of present ourselves as really investing what comes out of the commercial aspects of the ICE back into that charitable mission. Okay. So, yeah, this is really then moving into just giving a little bit more scope to what we can do with the content that we publish. I mean, when I joined the ICE 2 years ago, I really didn't know what civil engineering was in the sense of how much it actually has an impact on wider society. It's evolved a lot over the last 200 years. So there's lots of sub-disciplines. And again, it probably feeds back into what Lauren was saying about being able to actually grow your audience. It's much wider than you think. So don't be defined by your niche. You can change perceptions about a discipline. So the ICE has a commitment now to support the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which link into the role of civil engineers with a wide range of spectrum of topics, so environment, climate, sustainability. So civil engineering is so much more than roads, railways and bridges. So that's a message you can give when you're trying to sort of broaden your audience and get more customers essentially. And really civil engineering is an applied subject field. So our research output links research back into practice, and it feeds into the wider ICE mission, really. Whoops, I've gone forward one. So it's about finding practical solutions to environment, sustainability, climate change. So your output is really offering solutions to those very important topics. So we've tried to move away from talking about products in particular to talking more about, not talking about journals or ebooks, but being led by the content and how that is actually providing solutions. So I don't know if you can see there's a blog about Scrabble and Fatberg, which was a topic that we published a lot on, but it's also become a much wider topical discussion as well about, how to keep the water supply clean. And it's actually now an official word in the Scrabble dictionary. So we kind of try and add a bit of humour into what we're doing as well. But it is really about making, the publishing is the output, but that's the primary focus. And it's looking at how we can match that content with key events and hot topics. And then you can use lots of different sort of metrics for measuring that impact, not just through impact factors, which I'm just going to go into now. So yeah, impact is really more than impact factors. So, civil engineering, as I said, it plays an important role in finding solutions to global environmental challenges. And it really makes a difference on the way we live. So these are some examples of some articles that have been written from some of our journals. There's one here on driverless cars, which then got picked up by some media outlets, and it's measuring then that impact outside of the traditional metrics of measuring, the impact of a journal or an article through citations. And then this is another example here, plastics. We all know about the scourge of plastics now. We're all trying to use water bottles, which is sustainable. So this is just another article that we published around using plastics and basically recycling it into sand for concrete. And again, this got highlighted through the ICE blog and publishing on social media, and it had a high reach and engagement. We use a lot of different metrics for that, so altmetrics and the dimension badges, to see how our content is influencing lots of different aspects. So this is just a few takeaways, which I hope will help, perhaps if you're looking to look at other ways to leverage your content or your niche. So really is about overcoming those limitations by saying, okay, we want to try and distinguish ourselves through our brand values and our wider society values, our higher values, I guess, than just the commercial side. And again, we've learnt not to sort of, just look at ourselves as civil engineering, but we have a wider discipline application than that, and make the content the star of the show, really. The publishing output is solving lots of issues, and you can really highlight that through particular content that resonates with those particular important topics. And then again, leverage your real world impact. So not just looking at impact factors and citations, but looking at, as I say, the application in a much broader perspective. So yeah, that's thank you from me and from the ICE Superheroes, which is a cartoon that we actually developed when we were 200 years old. So we've got some Captain Sanitation and various other superheroes, just to demonstrate the impact of civil engineering, really. But thank you very much for your time and your attention, and I shall hand back over to Heather.
Thanks, Rachel. So I wanted to open up some questions for the team and across the panel. And these questions that I have will be for everyone, and then we can open up the floor if you guys have questions as well. So the first question I have is, what was your turning point in the market that helped you become successful? So I'll turn it over to that. Okay, so she wants to do this.
Sorry. Okay. Hello? Oh. Are they? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I'll be a little bit cheeky with the question and say that I think the question I would prefer is not, was there a single turning point, but it's coming to the understanding that you never stop growing. you never stop trying to be better. And even in the context of what we're talking about today, and having a brand and having a value proposition, that those are things that are naturally going to shift over time and should shift over time. So I think it's been an important realization for us going forward, is just to understand that we're in a shifting environment, we're in shifting markets. And so understanding the need to continue to evolve, whether that's business model, whether that's the type of marketing that we do, whether that's a different types of product offerings to our communities.
Good answer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I can only really speak to an editorial perspective, but to that end, when we launched the CRISPR Journal, for example, it being our most successful journal, bringing in hundreds of thousands of dollars within the first year, being accepted into Medline within the first year, the things we did differently with that journal encouraged us to break silos within our own company. We had marketing, editorial, sales, production, everyone working together in the same fluid motion on that journal. We weren't working separately and communicating by email. We had weekly meetings, we had weekly targets, we had in-house editors, we had an executive editor that works full-time on our staff that's a PhD in the field. So thinking about things in that way, streamlining the processes and trying to otherwise break down barriers within our own company, created our most successful product.
Oops. Yeah, I think there's a number of different sort of factors, I think, or tipping points for me. Obviously, I'm coming more from a sales perspective with my answer, but it's really about, I think, taking the conversation away from the traditional things around, impact factors, metrics around cost per download, all those kind of conversations you have with librarians. And I'm probably repeating myself, but looking again, really the wider impact of what you're doing, how you're influencing things like, policies, the development of the discipline. So it is really about moving away from those kind of conversations that you would have around, how much does this cost? And, this cost means this much of a download. And moving those conversations away has been the important factor, I think, out of a number of others, but that's probably the most important.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. The other question that I had for you guys too is, what elements of your product do you feel distinguishes you over your competition?
Well, certainly for BioOne, there's not a lot of secondary aggregations out there in the market. There's Project Muse, there's Project Euclid, there's Geoscience World, and there's BioOne. So in terms of exactly what we are a unique animal. We're an aggregation, and we do so in the biological, ecological, and environmental sciences, and we do so on a nonprofit basis. So I think the important thing there is understanding what you are and what you aren't. So we are never going to compete, say, with the larger aggregations, with the science collection in ProQuest. And that can be a tough thing to kind of get your head around, because it's something that we hear a lot from potential customers. Well, we're deciding we're not going to get BioOne, we're going to get an EBSCO science package instead, or a ProQuest package instead. So in that sense, they are our competitors, because we're all competing for subscription dollars. But I think having a better holistic understanding, in the same way of how we talk about knowing who your communities are, know who you are in a position to compete against and who you are not. You are probably never going to be able to, as a small society, compete against a major commercial publisher. But how can you compete more effectively, or how can you offer value to your customers in a way that is compelling?
Very good.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Lauren on that. And it's so important to know what you are and what you aren't, because I think that is most of the battle. Being a medium-sized publisher, we're not going to compete with the Elsevier's or the Springer Natures. We know our strength is in niche publications. We know our strength is in launch publications. And that in and of itself allows us to maneuver effectively within our own company and our own strategy. But I also think it makes a difference to have a CEO that is so present in our company, and I realize not many companies have that opportunity, but I think that does make the most difference to us, because having the founder of the company coming into the office every day does make a big difference, and connecting with her personally does make a big difference as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're a small entity, so as you said, it's going to be difficult to compete with some of the big players out there. I suppose one of the advantages of the ICE is that we do have a sort of a very niche area that we're focused on, even though it has a wider application. So, and the fact that, you know, we're working with industry as well. So we're partnering with academic, and we're partnering with the industry as well. So it is around the application of that content and how it feeds into really, you know, fulfilling future missions the IC has about those goals of sustainability.
That makes sense. So we've talked a little bit about branding. We've talked a little bit about competition and being visible. So the last question I have for you guys is, how often do you market yourself in campaigns to your segments and personas?
Well, again, and I realize I'm turning all of your questions on their head, but I think you're always marketing. It's like you're always selling. And I don't think that needs to have a negative connotation, kind of going off of my presentation. All of that is marketing. It's not necessarily sending out a print piece or sending out an email or attending a conference. It's everything we do on a day-by-day basis. It's, the way that we treat every single customer service inquiry. It's the way that we have, consultative conversations with our participating societies. It's the way we have ongoing conversations with, potential librarians. All of that is an opportunity to market, to brand, to, have a positive connotation of your product and your organization as a whole.
Couldn't have said it better, Lauren. I mean, that's really the truth. We're constantly marketing ourselves, whether it's email campaigns, social media, presenting at conferences, speaking to people individually. You are the face of your company when someone is meeting with you or exchanging any kind of correspondence with you. And so it's really, we're always on, we're always marketing, and it's really the core of our business as well.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about marketing, there's so many different aspects to it, and your approach will really depend on the audience that you're talking to. So, as I mentioned, we have a number of different sort of people writing for us, researching with us, and then we have our members as well. So we're always looking at different ways to market those and giving different messages based on that audience. And I think the other important thing around sort of marketing in general is giving a kind of story to your marketing message. So it kind of has a bit of a refresh rather than the kind of standards. So, things like the Fatberg word and Scrabble and that kind of thing, giving it a little bit of comedy there, but also obviously having a proper message behind it as well to sort of build up your brand.
Absolutely. So I think all of that together is why these guys have been successful in what they do. And so I wanted to open up the floor as well and see if there's any questions out there that you want to ask these guys.
Hey, so I have a question about your process. So if you're at the beginning of this journey and you're thinking about how to build your brand, how to build your messaging, what are some of the processes that you've engaged in that help you arrive at that? And then how does that change over time?
Well, I mean, I think the big thing is doing a truly honest assessment of your organization and your content and your partners and everything kind of under the sun that goes into it. And I think the key there is honest, being honest with yourself and looking under all rocks, because I think when we talk about, like, yes, with Bio1, this is, ecology, biology, environmental sciences is what we know, but to dig deeper and to get to those levels of, well, what makes this special, and what is the type of content that's actually being published, and who are these author communities, and what sort of distinct values that we have. So kind of starting out from the very beginning and doing a state of the union assessment of where you stand now, and then deciding where you want to be, and having realistic goals of, again, not going from point A to, scholarly publishing domination, but having realistic and tangible goals of what you want to do, and then deciding on, well, what steps need to be taken in a certain time horizon to get there. But again, I personally think that the biggest thing that you can do starting out is just be very honest about what your strengths are, and then what your weaknesses are, and where the opportunities are to get to what you want.
I'm also going to add an editorial swing on this, but I'm thinking about launching a new journal when you ask your question, because it's a new product, it's a new approach. It's something that I am not a specialist scientist in at all, but I'm responsible for the success of this product. And so the way that I approach it is I do my very best to find a way to identify what this journal topic is and be able to explain it to a 6-year-old. And I think that's really the core of successful deployment and development of a product. Because if I can explain this to a 6-year-old, then I can explain it to anyone. And people will otherwise understand and adhere to what I'm trying to develop. For example, phage therapy applications and research. I had never heard of what a bacteriophage was before maybe 2 months ago. And I asked around, and I asked some specialists in the field, and they said, well, it's really an alternative therapy to antibiotic resistance. And I thought, wow, that is so cool. And then you just take that nugget of information and you otherwise expand upon it and grow your own knowledge. But I think the really core place to start is to find out a way to explain it in the simplest way possible. Use that as your core marketing, and then take it from there, expand upon that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've probably covered the main things that I would have said when you're starting out this kind of process. I think just keep it simple, really. Don't overcomplicate it. Have your goals. Have some key strategies that are going to support those goals, and then just go for it. It's that I think those are kind of the main points I would say.
Great. Is there any other questions?
A question for Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
You talked a bit about impact beyond impact factor. Can you talk a little about how you put that into practice and where that resonates? Is that something where you pull some kind of data and it helps sell institutional subscriptions, you get authors, or where do you kind of put that into practice?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we do. We look at we started using some services to help us to identify how our content is influencing the wider society. So there are things like altmetric, dimension badges, those kind of things that we've included now. And certainly, so when we're talking to the librarians, they can see, through our platform, how certain content is influencing, say, policy, where it's being mentioned in policy documents, where it's being mentioned in blogs. So the librarians are able to visualize how that content is having a much greater influence beyond impact factors. And I guess we're also really focusing on doing sort of editorial selections as well around our journals. So we're getting our editors to pull out key articles that resonate, both in terms of our goals, so the sustainability goals of the wider ICE, and use those then to really market and to show the value of that content beyond impact factors. So things like blogs, We've also got a wider ICE social media account, so we can feed that out to our members as well. And then also got an ICE publishing sort of social media feed as well. So those kind of the key things that we've been doing recently to sort of bring us above that conversation around impact factor. I hope that answers your question or helps to.
Is there any other questions? Doesn't look like it. Big now. All right. Well, I wanted to thank our panelists today for taking time and to put this together, and for your time of coming into the session. And I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thank you.